We're doing it live, David.
We're going live.
All right.
Well, Cliff, I mean, I am in a state. I am in a mood. And I've been trying to understand, and my mood is largely being driven right now by the destruction of the East Wing of the White House. And when you think about all the different things that Donald Trump has destroyed in his presidency to be pissed off about, I keep thinking, what is it about this that has got me so agitated and angry? And so I started doing a little bit of, the psychoanalysis kind of stuff that we sometimes do. And I remembered, Cliff, that when the very first time that I went to the White House was when we went on a family trip, I think in the 1970s, maybe during the Carter presidency, my brothers and I and our parents. And back then, the original visitor's entrance was in the East Wing. And so I have some, vague memories of going to the White House and seeing the various rooms. Fast forward to the late 1990s when I had the privilege of being a White House correspondent for a network that shall not be named. But I was invited to one of those holiday celebrations for the press where, a couple hundred journalists get to go and shake hands at the time with Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and on and on and on. And the entrance again was through the East Wing. And that's where the Marine Guards would greet you in the protocol office, and you'd go through there and you'd sign in. And the East Wing was magnificent. It was beautiful. It was tastefully done. I mean, and so I have such searing memories of that. And I wasn't a wealthy guy. I was not a political contributor. I'd never contributed any money at any point in my life. I was simply privileged to have the job that I was covering the White House. So I got invited there. And I thought, okay, this really is the house of the people. So now when I see the people's house literally being destroyed, the East Wing, home of the First Lady's office, home of the protocol office, the visitor's office, the people who sent out the White House stationery, it makes me so infuriated on a visceral level.
I understand that completely. I think I can say there's two things going on for me. By the way, everybody at blueamp.co, which is our Blue Amp Media, our nice little Substack, David has written a piece that we released this morning that was, David, when he gets going, man, it was fantastic. And you should.
But it did not go into the psychoanalysis. It simply sort of got into the prose and Donald Trump, that this is a monument to his ego and on and on and on, that kind of stuff.
But I don't think you have to. I mean, look, to bring some stuff out from real life and from movies, right? 9/11. Now I happened to be there that day, which made it that much worse. I grew up in New York City, and we used sort of the Twin Towers often. You come out of the subway. You knew which way you're going because of that. I was right down in that area and saw the second plane hit sort of live. That was traumatic enough. Seeing those two towers go down, when it's an iconic symbol of your country, I feel like it hits you that much harder.
Yes.
I think of movies, of course they have Independence Day, it's the Capitol building that's being destroyed, right? Now, in a movie that I almost feel like don't mention because, Charlton Heston turned into an NRA-loving asshole. But back when he was not an NRA-loving asshole, it's the tell at the end of Planet of the Apes. And I'm sorry if you haven't seen it by now, folks.
The Statue of Liberty scene, right?
A 50-year-old movie for you. Yes, because it's the Statue of Liberty. It's this iconic symbol. And it's covered in sand and whatever. I mean, it hits you on another level. It's sort of, that's part of it. And part of it is and I don't want to use a metaphor that is not sensitive, and especially to women because of the ways he has violated women. But it's like whatever he touches, he destroys in some way. He wrecks, he violates, it's just his very being, this just sort of gross, gauche, used car salesman stumbling around with a second-grade education, tripping over his tie because it hangs down to his dick because he can't fucking tie a tie. I'm sorry, I just to no end. He's how old now? And it's like, just everything about him is just disgusting.
I've heard, Republicans who have reached out to me and said, hey, this ballroom may be magnificent. And let me state for the record, yes, I think it's quite possible that maybe this ballroom is magnificent. Maybe it's better than anybody expected. I'll leave that open. I don't know anything about architecture and design. But what I do know is that the architects who are out there who are respected, not Donald Trump's architect, but everybody else, the institutions, the various newsletters, they hate this ballroom. They say is ostentatious. It is garish. It has these gigantic cathedral-like ceilings when the White House is actually one of the things that appeals about the White House is that it is accessible because it is a house. It's not Versailles. It's not a castle.
No, I'm sorry. You are a kinder soul than me. There's no way it's gonna. First of all, it's gonna be like bigger than the White House itself. It is. I mean, when you're looking for symbolism, I'll never forget. I did some work through the State Department, and they sent me to, they sent me to Romania at one point, and they showed that the second, I think the largest building in the world is what, the Pentagon. And I feel like this was like the second largest when Ceausescu built this palace for himself, based on a palace that they built for themselves in North Korea, and it was sickening because you knew that people were starving there. They still had bullet holes in the main square where they'd executed him, because I went there in 2004, I want to say,
Hmm.
through a State Department program, and like these garish, like sick things you do while you're cutting food from kids so they don't eat, while you're cutting people's health care. You are building this ridiculous, and come on, I mean, like, he already has put so much gold in the White House, in the Oval Office. It's like Saddam Hussein's palace. It's just, it's like he thinks if you put more gold somewhere, that makes it better. And that's sort of like a definition of his whole life. Like, if you put things, ostentatious, symbolic things, as opposed to doing anything real, that means something instead of making it repulsive. And while people are out there, he's buying a new jet for, fascist Barbie there, Christy Nome, and what's that going to cost? 70 million? I don't remember what, 170.
And all this ties in like to the other scandal this week, right? And that is, a lot of Republicans keep saying, oh, well, this, the reason Donald Trump can wreck the East Wing without getting anybody's permission is because this is privately funded. And yet there was Donald Trump in the Oval Office saying, no, I am going to use the $230 million that I expect the Justice Department to give me for my inconvenience of facing the criminal investigations for January 6th and the election interference and the files in Mar-a-Lago. I'm going to use some of that $230 million and I'll give it to the White House for the ballroom. In other words, even if Donald Trump is successful in getting his former lawyers who work at the Justice Department to approve this $230 million taxpayer giveaway to Trump, then he's going to siphon it over to this ballroom, which is essentially just a monument to his ego. And so, yes, the taxpayers will end up having their money spent on this. And so it drives me crazy.
Well, we're spending 40 million now, not 20, to give to Argentina so they can be the market for soybeans, because there's obviously there has to be a payoff of some sort there, and screws over our farmers. Again, that's our taxpayer money being given because he fucked up with his stupid tariffs. I mean, again, there's just nothing he doesn't destroy, and it's not even just that. It's what you said. There's nothing he doesn't destroy in this gauche, gaudy, like, display. He's such a classless clown. It's like somebody watched on TV this, some like Biff Tannen, and was like, that's what class is, and then decided to go and like copy it.
Imagine, and you think about, you mentioned all the things that he has ruined. I mean, you talk about, Trump water, Trump steaks, the Trump ties, the Trump airlines, the various, hotels and condos that people hated. Well, all of that classless, crass tackiness that Donald Trump brings to this stuff and essentially cheapens it, that's what he's doing to the White House grounds.
Yes.
I mean,
what he's done to all these other structures that were ugly enough and gaudy enough and made cities look worse, But and again, as I love to always point out, again, that, people, it could be a success. Again, nothing he does is ever a success. He finds ways to get Russians to bail him out. He finds ways to pay $750 in taxes one year. He finds all sorts of ways to get out of his screw ups, which are constant. But he never does anything well. They've said they don't even have full plans for this thing yet. God forbid he plan anything. I mean, of course that this is the way it's going to end up. Casinos. I said it again and again. People walk in and hand you their money for nothing, for a bunch of chips they expect to lose, and then you pump oxygen in, and you don't put up windows and clocks, and you feed them drinks so they give you more of their money. And he found a way to actually lose money on that. I mean, that's what I mean. He just, and now he's doing it to the White House.
Yeah, and full disclosure, look, I didn't really know much about the planning commission in Washington, D.C. that is responsible for reviewing all plans and blueprints for any changes to federal buildings. But okay, I've known that there was such a commission, and I read this week that, this is how serious the commission takes these things. When I think it was during Trump's first term, and he wanted Melania to be in charge of redoing the tennis pavilion because they thought it could be better. They submitted plans. It took a year of revisions and changes before the commission said, okay, here's a plan for redoing the tennis pavilion that will keep it in accordance with history and all. That's how serious this commission takes these things, as they should.
Right.
And to just ignore the commission completely because you think, oh, I don't want it to slow me down and I don't want to have to go through them, so I'm just going to go around them. And these are the people who actually know about the history and the architecture and can say this is going to fit or it's not. And so.
And it's illegal what he did. So let's say that. We need to get Nina in here because Nina is awesome.
Yeah, let's do it.
Nina and Burleigh are I may be mispronouncing her last name. I hope I'm not. But I am hoping she will tell me if I am. Let's get Nina in here.
And Nina is a top-notch investigative journalist who has done, and we'll plug this when she joins us, but she has done some terrific investigative reporting into the Jeffrey Epstein files and the various sex scandals surrounding that and the pedophilia. And she's talked with other journalists who've been looking at this. And I am super, super excited to talk to her because, as you know, and as some of you know, my opinion on what may or may not be in the Epstein files changed a couple of weeks ago with a pretty dramatic incident in the U.S. Senate. So I'm so excited to talk to Nina about that.
Yes, absolutely. And I think our opinions that it was much more serious changed on the same time with some obvious stonewalling, let's say, from the loser brigade, who all better end up in prison at some point. But yeah, I mean, and we'll talk about Epstein, but she also has written 8 books. I think is roughly about 8 times as many as Donald Trump has read. It probably was like some children's book somewhere. I'll give him credit for one. There is, she has written obviously a number of other pieces there, and one on like this just incredible story that will bring in Project 2025, right-wing lunatics that you're familiar with from the Oklahoma area, and this one scandal that's bringing down embarrassing and bringing down a bunch of them.
And it's a sex scandal, right? It's a sex scandal.
Yep, it is a sex scandal. There's some cuckolding going on in there. There's some illegal payments to people going on in there. There's self-promotion. It's a perfect Republican scandal because the Republicans at this point, why Epstein rings so true with the billionaires and what they're doing to us is it's a combination of both financial and sexual perversion.
Yes.
And anti-democratic corruption. So, Nina, what's going on? We're waiting still.
And actually, that reminds me of something, Cliff, that I saw this morning that I was going to ask you about. I don't know if you caught Mike Johnson, who was on Speaker of the House, was on CNBC this morning. And he was asked, again, as he's been asked before, how come you're not swearing in Adelita Grijalva? And isn't this about, the Democrats say this is an effort for you to try to block the 218 signatures that would force a vote on the Epstein files? And we've talked about Mike Johnson before and the allegations out there and the speculation that he's living a double life and all that kind of stuff. Well, he clearly this morning looked like the unhappiest person on the face of the planet. When he was being asked about Adelita Grijalva, he literally looked like he was about to cry. And he choked up at one point. And then at another point, Andrew Ross Sorkin, the CNBC journalist, responded to Johnson and said, I'm just invoking the Pelosi precedent, but who waited 25 days to swear in, lawmakers when she was the House
always
Speaker.
Come up with some BS, I know.
And so Andrew Ross Sorkin says, why can't we just agree that, okay, it was wrong for Nancy Pelosi to do it, and it's wrong for you. Why don't you just swear her in? And again, he started to look like he was going to tear up and cry. I mean, it was remarkable. I mean, he was clearly in a bad mood when he did the interview, and this just made him even angrier and sadder in some ways.
He's such a pathetic creature. But we have Nina now.
Hello, Nina.
Guys.
Good to have you on the show.
Wow, I'm so honored to be here, man.
I don't know if being in our company is anything anyone should be honored by.
Are you in occupied DC or are you up here in New York?
Well, Cliff is in Ohio, and I'm in we occupied Connecticut and the greater New York areas where I've been for the last several years.
I grew up in New York, but love of a good woman brought me out to Cincinnati.
That's right.
So
Yes, you explained that this morning. Sorry, I forgot.
But I'm back often because family and
And Nina,
I'm
here on
the shores of the sunny Hudson River. It's really nice here today.
Awesome.
Well, Cliff and I were just singing your praises with all the things you've written and the investigative journalism you've done, specifically lately regarding the Epstein case. And I was telling Cliff, and I wanted to bounce this off of you because I'll confess, until a couple of weeks ago, I was in the camp of, sure, Epstein did horrifying things. Donald Trump probably participated, but there's going to be no evidence of it because it's all been erased. All the pictures, all the documents, they've been shredded. And then Pam Bondi shows up at the Senate, and you wrote about this in your Substack because I thought, well, maybe there's something here to what I was thinking. Because when Pam Bondi refused a denial, when she was asked, I think by Senator Whitehouse, have you seen anything about the photos of Donald Trump with half-naked girls? She did not say no. And to me, that was the moment when I thought, maybe these really are in the files. Maybe there's all this crap, this horrible stuff that's in there that if Bondi were to say, no, it doesn't exist, then whistleblowers come out and say, no, it does exist, and she gets charged with perjury that way, or the files eventually get released and she's proven to be a liar. Am I off base to now suddenly be thinking that maybe there really is something in all these files?
Well, I'm sure there is. I don't think that Michael Wolff is just making that up. I think that Michael is a journalist, and yeah, he palled around with Epstein and Bannon and so on, but he's not. I mean, there's no reason for him to sort of just bullshit like that. And I think it's there's enough evidence that Donald, as when he was in his modeling and his pageant owning days, was pretty predatory, and we have enormous amounts of testimony from women, not legal testimony, but dozens of women that talked about his predatory behavior. And so and the fact is that he was very close to Epstein, and they were running buddies. They were they were outer borough guys, trying to pick up hot chicks and competing with each other. And that's the nature of their.
So you're saying they were bridge and tunnel? Is that what you're saying?
They're totally.
I can't help it. My Manhattan days, I'm a jerk, and I joke with everybody. But
you're a Manhattan, so you know what that is, right?
I do. They're people that would always come in and they felt there was a chip on their shoulder.
And there's a chip.
The Manhattanites.
That explains almost everything about Donald.
It does.
The women, the sophisticated Manhattan chicks in that late 70s, they thought he was. He'd show up in his like maroon 3-piece suit with the matching Cadillac, and they laughed. And the one who didn't laugh at him, of course, is the one who grew up in deprived collectivist Czechoslovakia and looking across at the West and thinking, that's where you get really expensive clothes and Cadillacs, and man, guys who wear maroon 3-piece suits, they're hot.
And we're lucky she didn't see like Dumb and Dumber. She would have loved those guys.
And yes, that's right. Dumb and Dumber, but with an evil twist. That is such a great metaphor, because that's actually what they are. I mean, did you look at the Epstein birthday book at all?
Yes. Sadly, I did.
Okay. And then those emails that he sends to Leon Black that were in the Times the other day. He can barely spell. He's an oaf. He's an oaf, and he hung out with oafs, and he grew up around oafs in Coney Island. That he comes from like this quasi criminal gangsterish kind of background.
And just to explain for a second to our audience, like who Leon Black is, he was a Wall Street financier who was also very close to Jeffrey Epstein socially and all sorts of other ways, who apparently, as you've reported, overpaid Epstein for the financial services that Black got from him.
I'm not hardly the only person who's reported that. I mean, the Wall Street Journal and the Times. I mean, he gave him $170 million, and I think that's a low figure. Like they actually, his company had to investigate it when it became reported, and they think that they lowballed that he actually gave him more. And
did he buy a country with it or something? What is it that he was giving him that money for? I can't.
We're looking into. I mean, for a long time, the operative idea about Epstein with these rich guys is that he wanted, and the girls, is that he was. It was a blackmail factory, right? He'd get him in, he'd get pictures taken, and then he'd go, gee, Bill or whatever. I think I'd like to, you to invest in my latest project. And by the way, those. I mean, it's not clear whether it was overt or not, but now we're starting to see, and the last piece I did was on Epstein worming his way into the establishment after he got this huge windfall from Les Wexner, which
That was the
also
one I found.
insanely mysterious. Given, billionaire gives him his
From Ohio here, so we know him well from north of me in Columbus. But
well, there
yes,
you go, and the Ohio connection, and Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein after Wexner gives him power of attorney, and that year after Ghislaine Maxwell first shows up in his life, he gets his first jet, and he and Ghislaine are going out to Columbus on the first jet every other week. Like, what is he doing in Ohio, right? But he springboards with that money. He springboards off of it, and within 2 years, he's a member of the Trilateral Commission and the Council on Foreign Relations. And I don't know if you guys grew up when I did, but those two names were like, they were like code for like world conspiracy theories.
He'd only joined like the Bilderbergers and like,
the Bilderbergers in there. I think the Bilderbergers.
Were they in there too? Is he a Mason too? I mean, he's just missing a couple things.
Exactly. Like he's like, so anyway, we find this out, and then and that's what the last story is. It's like he gets this money, he gets this nut, and then all of a sudden he's like hobnobbing with like Kissinger's next to him, and he's friends with the dean of Harvard, and he's palling around with Les Gelb, the eminence grise of the New York Times foreign affairs writer, and major figure in American Cold War era reportage and foreign affairs, and all these ambassadors, and he's palling around with these people, and suddenly he's like in with them, and that's what that last piece is about. It's just saying like how quickly he went from just this gangsta to now he's like got this money from Les Wexner, and then he's putting it to this type of use. And so the next thing we're looking into is the invest. It really is about follow the money. I mean, everybody's focused on the girls. He's a pedophile. Oh, pedo, by the way, is actually not a pedo. There's another word for what he is, because it's like teenagers that he's into. But yeah, the girls, the trafficking, everybody's focused on that. But what you need to be doing, and what a lot of really good reporters are actively doing all the time, is follow the money. Follow the money, follow the money, follow the money. Because he was up to something with the money. And right now we're looking at the connections with him, MIT and US Tech, Thiel, who, by the way, Thiel, he invested in Thiel. I mean, he's got.
Of course, somehow he would have to be involved. Yeah,
he's connected with those guys and the Russians. Okay, so he somehow is like this conduit or connecting these Russian guys with and he's using hot Russian babes to kind of connect the whole thing. There's something was going on with tech and Russia. Now, I could go on and on. Do you want me to keep babbling?
Well, what I'd like to do is, take that.
I consider it educating.
Yeah, it's fascinating. But take it. How much of these connections, the Epstein connections with Russia, with money, following the money, how much then gets enmeshed with Donald Trump?
Yes, because the real thing we want to do is make sure that everybody knows that this is about Donald, right? And I think the Donald part of it is that the girls and the 80s, but Donald also needed money, right? He was like broke. He bankrupted his company, and he was needing money. So, and he was playing these, and he was in competition with Epstein for certain funds, I think. And at one point, and with the Russians, okay, I don't, again, I'm not a Russia Trump conspiracy theorist, but there is this connection. The Russians were around. They were very aware of this guy.
Well, it's pretty well reported, right? You're not just jumping off on, I mean, like even Ivana, if I'm remembering this correctly, it was Ivana's dad was spying for the Czech, now it's been reported for the Czech, whatever it is, the Czech intelligence agency, I don't remember the name of it, who was closely tied into the Russian one. So they've been looking at this guy forever, and that's not conspiracy, right? That's out there. I mean, that's pretty well reported.
That's all out there. I think what I don't fully agree with is that the idea that, you know, was on MSNBC during the first term so much that he was like the Russian candidate for president, like that they put him in the White House. I am from the Midwest, like you guys, you're out there, and I grew up there. And when he showed up on the scene in 15, 16, I thought, yep, I know people who would vote for this guy. I know Americans will vote for this guy. Okay. It's not the Russians. They did not force us to, we did this to ourselves. The Russians were happy to be participating and messing around with our social media and so on. But this country did this to ourselves. I mean,
well, the way I look at it is Russia helped make it happen, but if it had been nowhere close, it wouldn't have been a problem. The fact that he was able to, as you just said, to perform so well because he's such a practiced con man, and you know, the shamelessness with which he will tell anybody anything, and you know, so he could come to the Midwest and tell all these stories. And there's all sorts of other issues too. There's corporate media failing, and you know, there's the Democrats not hitting hard enough. I mean, we could do a whole seminar here,
exactly.
But in the end, I view it as the Russians played a role, but it should have never been that close, so they could have helped put him over the top.
That's right. That's right. But just to go back to the money and the girls and Trump. So I think, you know, he was buddies with Epstein for many, 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 many moons. They were running buddies. They hung out together. It's quite possible that Melania was, well, so let's just say that Melania was a member of the Eastern European Hot Women Club in New York City at a time when there were a ton of beautiful East European women coming into this country who wanted to be models. Some of them fell into the trap of the Epstein trafficking world. And we know that he was trafficking Eastern European women. So it's reasonable to think that Melania actually did interact with Epstein, at least at the very least through her Eastern European community of friends. And now
Do you think she may have been trafficked at first, and is that how she met Donald?
Well, I mean, I did a book on the Trump women, and she's a chapter in it, right? And I did interview Paolo Zampoli, her alleged agent, the guy who says he brought her here. He tells the story of how, you know, how she got here and how she got her visa and so on. And you know, but let's just say there's some disagreement between her and what people tell reporters like me about how she met Trump. And you see that right now Michael Wolff is going to court with them over this issue because, you know, they don't want, my experience was they did not want, there's a period of Melania's life between, I guess, you know, she graduates from high school in Slovenia to showing up in New York City with Trump 10 years later. There's this period that's just kind of like a dark place. And it's very difficult to find out what she was doing, where she was. And, you know, Trump likes to say she was my supermodel and that they met at this, you know, Victoria's Secret Kit Kat club thing. And other people will tell you other things about how they met. Okay. And I happen to believe some of those people are telling the truth. I put some of that in my book, and it was vetted here in the U.S. It's been published. We mentioned it in an article in the Telegraph. I wrote something for the Telegraph and mentioned some of this in the Telegraph, and they immediately sent Charles Harder, the Gawker slaying lawyer, sent a letter to the Telegraph and said, "We're going to sue you." And the Telegraph yanked the story because they're so terrified of Charles Harder. The fact is, we have sources that would come and they would testify in court. So that's what's going on with Wolff. Has a lot more material on this. And you know what? Finally, somebody says, you can't slap us with these slap suits. They can't sue journalists over this stuff in the United States. Truth is an absolute defense.
Yeah,
and
kudos to Michael Wolff. I mean,
it's gonna be great. I mean, if he manages to say to get some New York judge to say, okay, yeah, bring your sources in. And you know what? Let's get Melania in here and to ask her exactly when she met Epstein.
Yeah, kudos
Right.
to Michael Wolff, because it was the demand letter that Melania sent, and literally when the demand letter deadline was approaching, that's when Michael Wolff said,
Yeah.
"Okay,
Well,
I'm
this
going to
is
file
what
my
they
lawsuit
do.
against you." So
Th-
I want to bring this back one thing though to something else you had written, and that is, and it gets back to sort of how I started this with my initial sort of skepticism about whether there would still be anything left in the Epstein files of the Department of Justice and the FBI. You wrote about this effort by, I guess, Pam Bondi and the FBI to have like 1,000 agents or 1,000 staff go through and categorize and catalog every Donald Trump mention in the files.
I'm
That
sure
has
they
been
couldn't have been stopping any crime during that time. So it's definitely the Democrats who are weak on crime. But go ahead.
there have been some denials by the Justice Department that they did this. Where do you come down on this, and what sort of impact you think that has had in terms of what Donald Trump's own knowledge may be about? I mean, certainly he remembers what he did. I think the question for him has been how much of this stuff was documented and exists today.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been reported by, some very, trustworthy sources that this was what went on. Okay, we're not making this up. They deploy, and the reason we know this is that there were so many people deployed to do this in the FBI, dragged off of their jobs, and apparently put on 24-hour shifts and given like some kind of video explanation of how to go through and log mentions on some kind of like Microsoft spreadsheet. So this was, but there 1,000. If it was done in such a slapdash manner, because look who's running the FBI, right? They don't know what they're doing. So these guys, so men and women who think they're supposed to be crime fighting, have been told to sit for 24 hours, pouring through. They have like a room full of material. I mean, vault, right? Of Epstein.
It's like the equivalent of sending the National Guard into the cities to clean up trash, basically.
Yes, exactly. And so they're pissed, right? So these people leaked to reporters that this was going on. So I believe that that's what it was. What I can't believe is that more people aren't talking about that every day. Like, and Mike Johnson shuts down the House so that won't swear in a duly elected Arizona representative so that they won't have to talk about this.
He's such a mousy little wuss. I'm sorry, that guy is so pathetic.
Well, on the spreadsheets, I mean, the slapdash way that they did this, these are all government records. Haven't they just made, assuming we get access to this stuff, haven't they just made our jobs as investigative reporters that much easier by organizing all this for us?
Well, yes.
That's great. Thank you.
Well, yes, if they did retain it all. But what if this was all noted, this is all noted, and then Todd Blanche or somebody goes down there and they just they're the ones who now they have the roadmap and they just take out. So you'll be looking at the documents and you'll get to page 9 is missing. Here's page 8 and then page 9.
Donald Trump walked into and then it disappears. And it's like, and then he walked out.
Or they'll say, it's been redacted because of the victim's name and it's just Donald Trump stuff. So I don't know that we'll ever see it. And I think,
but here's the thing, if Todd Blanche has been able to do that, and again, for a long time, I thought, sure, the Donald Trump crowd is going to expunge, erase all this stuff. Wouldn't that, if Donald Trump could be confident that all his records and everything mentioning him had been expunged, then why would he now be essentially saying to Mike Johnson and everybody else, I don't want these files released? Wouldn't you then say, let's get this over with. Here's all this shit. I'm not mentioning any of this, as you can see.
Look, the Democrats are mentioned and push it out there, right?
And then that's it. But instead, he's terrified.
Yeah. And so I guess, I don't know. It was that Pam Bondi moment was very telling, and I think maybe it suggests that there are copies of these things.
That's what I was thinking, right? Because you wrote about how he was, and I've heard this other places, but you wrote a really great piece about, his ties into potential various intelligence agencies. I mean, this guy, if it weren't so gross what he did, obviously with women, would have the most interesting story. It looks like here and there it's KGB, it's CIA, it's Mossad. I mean, is there any intelligence agency he didn't work for on some level? They may have copies, right? I mean,
yes, exactly. I did a documentary on Ghislaine Maxwell, still streaming on Peacock. It's a 3-part documentary. We did it during COVID. when she was on trial. And so I know a lot about her and her family. And, her father actually was that kind of spy. He was MI6. He was doing business with the CIA. He was definitely doing business with Israel and the Mossad. He's buried on the Mount of Olives. He's a hero in Israel. And he was very mobbed up with the KGB. So there is this sort of type of spy or person who works that circuit, and he got rich off it. And he started that publishing company, again involving tech and Russia and the US. He started this company, a science publishing company, during the deep Cold War, where they could connect the scientists of Russia and the scientists of the United States. And it's the model. And, one of the things that is said about Epstein, we know that he was in England working probably with this notoriously secretive major arms dealer named Douglas Leese, Leese, who you can find out material. And he was behind the biggest arms deal between the UK and the Saudis in the 80s. Massive amounts of weapons were transferred. And
weapons in the 80s transferred through Saudi Arabia. That rings a bell of some sorts. I don't know. I wonder if it could have been related to certain other activities going on with weaponry. I swear to God, when you have these talks, it just feels like all of history is one big conspiracy. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but my God, in any case, go ahead.
Well, yeah, it is, it's the world we live in, right? It's very, people are, nothing is, well, I wouldn't say nothing is as it seems, but we're certainly in the weapons industry, right? And who wants the weapons? And when you're talking about the amounts of money that these Arab oil potentates have, look, Trump's on their payroll, right?
Yeah, cut her right now. They own him.
They're pouring money into his family's crypto business. The spigot is open for business. But anyway, that's just to say Epstein was in London when Maxwell was still alive, Robert Maxwell, the dad, and Robert Maxwell's all mobbed up in the Iran-Contra stuff and very tied in with the Mossad, very tied up with the KGB. And in some ways, maybe Epstein was kind of moving in his footsteps, although I think most likely that he was somehow connected with the Israeli intelligence and maybe the CIA at the same time. They were working in concert a lot. So,
well, didn't you write? Were you the one who wrote? It was in your piece, right? That he was given a whole grand tour, of the CIA and brought in.
That's part of this last piece where we talk about his entry into the global establishment. And he was invited by Les Gelb. Les Gelb, the Times foreign affairs writer and foreign relations council, I think he was head of it for a while. He arranged with Deutsch, the CIA director at the time, John Deutsch, to host a lunch for some members of the Council on Foreign Relations and spend a day there and have talks about information warfare and I can't remember what the other topics were. But
was it how to store information by Deutsch or no?
And Deutsch, well, okay. So anyways, Jeff gets invited to the CIA and gets to spend a day there. That was in '93, and Deutsch, I forgot about this. I was around when Clinton was president in Washington, and I guess I wasn't paying attention. But Deutsch narrowly escaped being charged with document pilfering. He was doing really weird stuff. Like we're now reading it. You're like, it makes Trump's Mar-a-Lago toilet thing look like Fort Knox.
Was he
Like-
stuffing the documents in his pants though, like Sandy Berger?
Oh, that's right.
No,
Sandy.
but that's Sandy Berger also. Yeah, Sandy Berger. That's also a whole other story. He was not stuffing. He would every day. But what Deutsch was doing was every day he would keep this like detailed journal of what was happening, and he was also.
Oh, that's good. That could never fall into the wrong hand.
And but it was he put it on a thumb drive or whatever they called it back then, a floppy disk, and he would take it out of the building every day in his pocket, and then he was using home computers, and he refused to let the he refused to let security sort of like be in his home. It's
Okay.
like way worse than anything. And so, there are lots of weird things with Deutsch that, I mean, he's still alive, so I guess we should be careful, but the reason he was.
Well, you're just recounting facts again. Like, do we know why he was doing it or what was going on? But it seems a little suspicious if he's not letting security into his home. I mean,
Clinton pardoned him 2 hours before W took over.
Of course.
Okay. I mean, Clinton may not have done. I mean, I remember Mark Rich anything close to what Trump has done. But it's one of my first proposals that Democrats should make, which is talk about no kings. Pardons are a power left over from the age of kings. Like right away, get rid of that crap. You want to allow a president to pardon people, there needs to be some sort of independent committee that gets to look everything over and decide it's above board. It's somebody that was thrown in prison who's innocent or for smoking marijuana, not the guy that was taking out files on their pants.
Or not the guy that was pooping in Nancy Pelosi's office and smearing the excrement all over like the January 6th rioters were. But Nina,
or the guy that threatened Hakeem Jeffrey's life, by the way, who was
Nina, I got to ask you, because Cliff was telling me about this, you've done some reporting about the web of sexcapades with Republicans that reach apparently all the way into the disgraced Secretary of State of Oklahoma, I think it was.
Oh, well, we have to get into this because there's just this I mean, this is amazing stuff here. I mean, and they can bring in Project 2025, a future Republican star in Oklahoma paying to self-promote, more of Donald Trump's gaudy and gauche and gross behavior and stuff that he was saying that makes it more obvious that he's probably allegedly guilty for these things. And I mean, there's so much in that piece. So I will let you take it from here because that thing was freaking brilliant.
Well, thank you. Your listeners can go to AmericanFreakShow.com and read it right now if you want to.
Go check it out, guys. Well, watch the next 18 minutes and then go read it.
It's just a little tidbit of white nationalist Christian hypocrisy and kind of a mini scandal. And as I write in my piece, the first sentence, in dark times, there's really nothing more cheering than the spectacle of these white Christian nationalists making hypocritical scandals out of their interactions with each other. And so, we have the great Jerry Falwell Jr. and the pool boy story. We have the recent fall of the mega church pastor down in Florida or Texas. I guess he was a huge Trump guy who's gone to jail for like sex with a 12-year-old or something.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. I remember hearing the story about it.
Also ick. And then there was this thing just now that somebody sent me this. The guy who sang the national anthem, the Christian rock guy for Trump, is now arrested for another child porn thing. I mean, what is up with these people in the child porn, right? They're so
and they don't even like where's the I was smoking crack excuse like Ted Haggard, like they got to study up on some of the past Republican liars from a generation ago,
Matt Schlapp. Let's not forget Matt Schlapp.
Let's not forget Matt Schlapp. I mean, if we go back into history, we can go with David Vitter at the whorehouses. Sorry if I'm not supposed to use that term anymore. We could go with Mark Foley hitting on the congressional pages.
Yes,
I mean, like for these guys to be conservatives, again, I used to do a whole segment on this online called Republican Sexcapades, and we had material every week. There's Larry Craig, the tap dancing, the Fred Astaire tap dancing senator. In only in Minneapolis bathrooms though. He was very shy about his tap dancing, except for there. It's unbelievable. But I want to let you tell
what's going on with them. Okay, so the story is, I think your listeners may be familiar with this guy, Ryan Walters. He was the Secretary of Education, or what I think, head of public instruction or something in Oklahoma. Education
He
secretary.
did a lot
Young
of
guy,
ads promoting himself, so we all had
Yeah.
to see him.
big self-promoter. Well, actually, he's not a self-promoter because he hired the wife of our Grim Reaper, Russell Vaught, who I like to call the transparent sea worm of DC politics, because he's been there for decades and he's just been sliming around undercover, hating, loathing, so angry at the progressives and the bureaucrats, and he couldn't wait. And so last year, Russ Vaught gets up and is on a secret camera recorded telling donors, I'm going to put the bureaucrats in trauma. I'm going to put these federal employees in trauma. I want them to feel trauma. And you're like, what is he talking about? He's like,
Protection from his childhood.
Dude. Well, then he gets put into power, and he and Musk did most of it, but hundreds of thousands of federal employees literally are on the streets now, and he's still cackling and he's filled with joy. But meanwhile, what was happening was when he was saying he couldn't wait to put these people into into trauma, his wife who's also a right-wing extremist, was divorcing him in Arlington County Courthouse in a 20-day. It took 20 days from. You can look it up. It took 20 days from filing to decree, uncontested, and they have 2 kids. And Mary Grace Vaught goes out to right around the same time, gets a big fat contract from the Oklahoma education secretary to increase his national profile. And the person who sort of brings her to this contract.
Those jokes write themselves, Cliff.
They really do.
Who brings her into the contract is what is described as a longtime personal friend. A man who was also with a political strategist, right winger, who's a Texan, who was also on Ron Johnson's staff with her in Wisconsin. So they go back a long, long ways. And this Texan is Ryan Walters' chief of staff, and the chief of staff was getting paid off the books, and they were paying Vaught's wife all this money to get Ryan Walters on TV. Now, just to remember that Ryan Walters is the guy who's doing these incredible, crazy right-wing Christian stunts, like telling the Oklahoma schools they would have to have a Trump Bible in every classroom. Not only would they have to teach Bible, which is against American constitutional law, but they were going to have a Trump Bible.
And like 10 commandments everywhere, and I'm only breaking 4 of them at the moment.
And he put Libs of TikTok woman in charge of their library system in Oklahoma, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, all of these stunts, right? He was just stunt after stunt, and he was getting a lot of national play. And it's thanks to the brilliant mind of Russ Vaught's recently divorced wife. So that's anyway, the whole thing fell apart because.
But wasn't she having a little bit of a, what shall we call it? A tete-a-tete, so to speak, with one of these folks?
Well, you can't say that. All we know is that she had a long personal friendship with this guy, and that's how she got.
That's all we need to know.
Just so I have this clear. So just so I have this clear, to clear this up for everybody. So Russ Vaught, who's essentially executing the Project 2025 and getting rid of all the bureaucrats, his soon-to-be ex-wife, she is paid, while she's increasing the profile of this guy in Oklahoma, she's also getting paid to get him more media attention.
Yes, and that's taxpayer money. And so what happened was even the Oklahoma is a red state. It's a Bible state.
It sure is.
Even the Republicans in the Oklahoma House were revolted by this grifting thing that was going on with this money that was going off the books, not to her. I think hers was on the books, but to this her buddy, this guy, longtime friend, who's Brian's was.
So her longtime friend was Ryan's chief of staff.
Yeah.
And so we don't have proof, but they were longtime friends.
Yes, longtime
He's being paid off the books by Ryan Walters.
Several guys are having their profiles extended.
Exactly. You could say there's a major erection of profiles, if you will.
So how did this fall apart? How did this go limp, so to speak?
So it falls apart because the Senate, the state house, in the Republicans in Oklahoma are like, even these MAGAs were revolted by this money being spent on this, and raising the profile of this guy who's just, using white Christian nationalism, pandering. Maybe he believes it, maybe he doesn't. He doesn't believe it so much that he stays off porn because accidentally he put porn up when
it gets better.
Office, and that happened before. Anyway,
was Mike Johnson monitoring him while he was on the porn, or that's just Mike Johnson's son?
Oh my God. Okay, we're going off the rails here.
I'm sorry, I can't help it with these people are such jokers who lecture all of us about moral values.
Yeah.
We just told a story that involved possible infidelity, porn, illegal payments. Like, the guy Russ Vaught, who Mike Lee said had been obsessed with cutting government since he reached puberty, which is a whole nother level of fucked up. I don't even know.
And to be clear, I want to make it very clear, we don't have any problems with anybody extending anybody else's profile, regardless of your sexual orientation, whatever it is. That's, it's up to you. But the hypocrisy is off the charts.
Make sure you harden their profile is what you need to do. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'll shut up.
Anyway, the cherry on top of all this is that Mehdi Hassan's little news, he's got some news organization that he started up, and one of his reporters got people in the White House to tell him that Donald has been obsessed with newly bachelorized Russ Vaught's sex life, and that he's been offering him Mar-a-Lago babes. And that's just how the story ends.
Right. And so offering him, is that, that sounds a lot like trafficking.
He's saying, no, you really got to you got to come down to Mar-a-Lago. You could get laid. And that's actually how he's talking to him. Like, you could get laid, you can get some pee down there. And that is, it's so disgusting.
And that's our president, everybody.
That's our president. And even the people who are listening on his staff are grossed out by the way he's talking to Russ. And it's just hard to picture Russ, who, if you look at a picture of him, you're like, it's almost like Steve Carell in that movie, the new, that's what it reminds me of. Like, oh, he has his Ryan Gosling, except that it's this tubby 79-year-old, the president of the United States, going, go on down to Mar-a-Lago, you can get some babes.
Russ Vaught couldn't go down there and pick up any shrubbery, much less anything else. If you've seen the guy and listened to him, I'm sorry, but
I don't know. I disagree. I think that those women down there think if you're a white guy and you got your job in the White House, you are.
Maybe it's what you mentioned earlier, right? When you mentioned Kissinger. Power is the ultimate aphrodisiac, kind of thing. Maybe that's what it is. Because
I'm sure they would go for it. Yes.
Wow. Nina, what are you working on now?
Oh my God. Well,
give us some more.
What am I doing? I'm starting a new book project that has nothing to do with Trumpism. And I do my Substack every week. So I'll tell you, my main thing is every week I write an essay about some other crazy person we do some Epstein reporting, but we're really focused on reminding people that these people are not normal. That's what it's. I started it 3 years ago after I read about Russell Crowe.
He threw a phone at somebody at a hotel, so I don't know. Russell Crowe's got his issues too.
Yes. No, Harlan Crowe, he's got,
he
owns Clarence Thomas.
Yes.
And there was that report in the Washington Monthly about how he collects dictator statues and
Nazi memorabilia,
table linens.
As one does,
Like, these people are just not normal. Like, somebody really should just do a podcast called American Freak Show. And that's just as I was ready to tweet that, I'm like, I should do that.
Yeah, why give it away?
This thing, and every week there's another freak to cover.
And we've found that at our place, like yours is amazing, and I want to say something about you in one second. But like we find ourselves, I don't know if we planned to write about this, but there's just some figure. It could be J.D. Vance, it could be Kash Patel, it could be Kristi Noem, just doing something so either sickening or ridiculous or clownish or criminal. There's just
Yes.
we constantly have to cover it
I
because these are
never,
not real
I have
people. They're jokes. They're
spoiled for
amateurs.
choice every week. I have like half written pieces almost every week. Just that some new one will come along like the next day that has to be paid attention to. There's
You
no
mentioned
shortage of material.
you mentioned House Speaker Mike Johnson and not swearing in on Alita Grijalva, clearly to try to block her from being the 218 signature that would force a vote on the Epstein files. We've talked a little bit about Mike Johnson's alleged double life and his sort of, stuff that he was doing when he was a relative no name in Washington, when he was a backbencher from Louisiana. What do you make of all that?
Well, I went to Tulane for a year. I was a party animal down there, and I know New Orleans and I know Baton Rouge a little bit, and I guess he's from Shreveport. I don't know, but it's like a different country down there. I don't know if you guys have spent much time in the Deep South.
I
It's a
spent some
different
time in
country.
New Orleans. Yeah.
And I don't know what to make of the guy because I grew up around hardcore Christians in Michigan, like Amish Mennonite people. And I do see, when I see him, I do see some of that, like, there's almost like a naivete. Of course, he's not naive, but there's something like he doesn't even have a bank account. I've read. I don't know if that's true.
No, they did say
It's,
that when he was
but
put in.
I kind of mystified, but I do want to say that he's certainly showing himself to be the ultimate foot soldier for MAGA, for the MAGAs. And what he's doing right now is reminding me, unfortunately, of Mitch McConnell and the Obama judgeship, because
Yeah.
these people, I'm not going to say it, I was going to say the F word,
Call them fuckers. They are.
They get away with that stuff.
Yeah.
And they did it with if they can do it with the SCOTUS, he might be able to do this. But I mean, at some point he has to open the house. So what's going to happen? She's in court, right? They went to court. So maybe somebody's going to stop them and tell them they have to do this. But I think they just don't even care. I don't think that they're going to listen. And so I don't know. I think he just thinks of himself as a Christian soldier. Is he? I know the grinder jokes. I know that he had that weird, like, adopted black kid thing. I don't understand it. The last time I was down in New Orleans, I was doing a piece on David Duke, and that was a long, long time ago. And I don't know. I mean, he is a worthy subject to look into, but
because there's more than that. I mean, again, you brought up some of the highlights. The weird adopted like black son who he acknowledges sometimes, but then doesn't show up in family pictures and other, and then is in other places. Yes, there's the grinder stories. There's the people seeing him out in certain places in DC stories. There's there's a lot of smoke there. We can't. It's all still alleged. It's not proven, but there's a lot there that I understand why people are plenty suspicious, because a lot of these same folks who these same rumors are out there about, again, they were out there about Larry Craig for a while until it was no longer a rumor.
Right,
well, unless you
right.
believe he really just had a wide stance, in which case maybe that's all it was. Otherwise, I'm gonna go with no. And so I mean, it just seems like the ones that the old saying, the ones that preach and yell the loudest are the ones who are committing the most sins. I mean,
Well, yes, that's what these guys, they're all projection. They're all projection all the time. But again, I mean, I don't know if you were able to prove that Mike Johnson, I don't know how you would prove that he was, I guess if you're on Grindr and he's there, I guess you could expose
well,
that.
there was some guy who said that he was going to do it, but I haven't heard anything. So I don't know, but you never know. Maybe he has a pool boy too.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what would, but the problem is that at the moment, what we're dealing with is somebody who's got a grip on power, and they may be able to carry this through. I don't know until the election next year to not seat her. I mean, it makes no sense. I don't
know what we can do.
Done while he's doing this. Are they they're throwing those pages away? I don't know.
Well, I know this. For example, the Senate can withhold unanimous consent to anything, and make grind stuff to a halt. I mean, if they refuse to put her on, then every single means possible to grind everything to a halt has to happen,
100%.
or grinder everything to a halt, if you will,
Right.
until he does what he needs to do.
Yeah. I mean, I just, you guys probably talk about this all the time, but the Democrats and, why they're not able to keep up with this, with the situation that we're in, the media ecosystem that we're in,
Yep.
the political, the descent of the political discourse into this place where you have a Laura Loomer using the C word constantly. I did this big piece for New Republic recently about her, where you have that kind of discourse, or just, bug-eyed lunacy of an Alex Jones. And the Democrats are still not there. They're like, not you could match that, I mean, Gavin Newsom is kind of getting it.
Yep.
But like, this is what's happened. We now have, the government, the president is a reality show master. He's an MC of the reality show. He knows how to get these eyeballs with this, with stunts and bullshit and outrage.
Yeah.
And the Democrats have not figured this out yet, and I don't understand.
My whole thing is, I don't mean to cut you off, but like some of them have, leadership sucks. So I've heard lately Hakeem Jeffries has gotten better on a few things, but there needs to be a standard where you need to be better on everything and do it for a number of weeks or you're out. Chuck Schumer needs to be out. You put someone like Chris Murphy in there who has, because there are individuals in there.
Yes.
There are Jasmine Crockett's and Swalwells and people that are, and those are the people that we need to get in leadership. And we need more from J.B. Pritzker and from Newsom, because that needs to be, these are people that have attacked our democracy, our economy, and handed them both over to billionaires and have all sorts of weird perversions and obsessions. And people need to know about all of this. And saying let's argue over Obamacare subsidies isn't telling people any of it.
Right.
Well, they're getting good advice from Joe Walsh, former Republican, who was saying, for example, in response to the ballroom stuff and the destruction of the East Wing, the Democrats running for president should run on tearing down that ballroom and inviting every American the weekend after inauguration to show up with their own hammer and crowbar and to rip it apart. And can you imagine if a Democrat like Gavin Newsom or somebody said, yeah, that's what we're going to do? I mean, of course, some people would brand him as crazy and you shouldn't be destroying things. But that kind of fight, that willingness to rise to the moment.
BYOB, bring your own bulldozer, as far as I'm concerned, and tear that monstrosity down.
Nina, tell us before we go where everybody can find you.
Well, ninaburleigh.com is my website. NINABURLEIGH.com. American Freak Show is my Substack, and I'm on Twitter at Nina Burleigh. Yeah, and you see me. I'm often in the New Republic.
Yep, I've read a lot of your stuff,
magazine.
And I just want to make sure to say to everybody again, because this is important. They're not to insult anybody out there, but there are people who write, and there are writers.
Yeah,
Nina is a writer.
Yeah.
Nina is a writer where beyond the story she's telling, the language she chooses, how she does it is engrossing. I mean, there are, our common friend Greg Oliar, I always say, is like that. There are people that just know how to write. So if you want to appreciate and read something and learn, but also just be like, this is art, read Nina's writing. Go check out The Freak Show. Go check it all out because you'll appreciate it. Oh, did we lose her?
And just like that, she didn't want us talking nice things about her anymore.
We're saying that I think she might have been kicked. It was saying that her signal was weak there, and they kicked her off. It wasn't me, man. I was saying nice stuff. It was David.
Maybe it was that the former Secretary of Education in Oklahoma was taking a break from having his profile extended and decided to interfere with our Substack.
Maybe his profile extended all the way into the satellite.
Oh my goodness!
David,
that was off the charts.
Yes, it was. Nina, if you're still watching, sorry, I don't know what happened at the end. Thank you so much for being on.
Yeah, awesome.
I hope all of you guys appreciate it. Go to The Freak Show. Please consider subscribing to blueamp.co. Free. We love you. A paid subscription lets us support other creators, lets us do more of this. And we'll keep bringing you this show. So
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for being here. Anything else to add, David?
No,
Anything you'd like to extend to the audience, or no?
I think I have done enough damage for today.
You already extended yourself too much today.
Exactly.
I think. God, I love doing these shows with you. Seriously, it's you know. All right.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks,
Thank
Cliff.
you,
We'll see you
everybody, for
soon.
being here. Thanks, David. You guys all take care. All right. Bye. I suppose I'm supposed to say my phrase. And as the sun sets slowly in the west, my friends, we bid you a fond farewell.